And now, live from the studios of Freedom's Phoenix, Ernest Hancock.
Yeah, the evil empire of, and who's the bad guys in all this? I don't see how we can rationalize that NATO and Western powers are, well, I tell you this, we're sure as heck not responsible enough that we're going to put a gun to my forehead and take money away from the people here to go invade and do whatever for somebody else, especially when there's no threat to us. Was there a threat to us in some way? I mean, how do they rationalize the West was threatened by Gaddafi in some way? I mean, they'll go on about how bad and evil he was and, blood-dripping fangs and all that kind of stuff, but was he a threat to us?
Gaddafi was a threat to nobody. Again, part of the big lie, Ernie. There were lots of reasons that the West targeted Gaddafi. Again, he did not play ball 100% with the West. That's the key. He had his own independent ideas. He decided that a sovereign country should have a right to rule itself, make its own decisions, and not have to follow rules set by other countries, set by Washington, set by NATO, set by the European Union. But he basically went along with most of what these countries like. He let in Western oil companies. He was very agreeable. I disagree with him on this. He was very agreeable to work with the Bush administration, the Obama administration, on the war on terrorism, which is really a war of lies because the only terrorism is state terrorism. That's another issue. I mean, he went along with most everything. But again, he had his own ideas on some things, including his own government-controlled central bank, including providing all these social services, including when Western oil companies came in, he wanted a fair deal with them so that Libya shared equitably in the revenues from its own oil. But the Western oil companies want a one-way deal where they come into another country, a developing country, and they're the senior partner, and the developing country is a junior partner, as opposed to if they go into a country like Norway, Norway is the senior partner, and the oil companies are the junior partner. So all people like Gaddafi or Hugo Chavez they want to be treated like Norway, and they have a right to. It's their oil, it's their gas, their resources, their country. What right does another country have to tell them what they should do? What right do other corporations have to come into their country and say, this is the deal, take it or leave it? They have no right whatsoever.
How is the transition from we don't get the contract deal that we want, this Confessions of an Economic Hitman by John Perkins kind of detailed a lot of this. If they don't get what they want, well, of course, then the other option is assassination or overthrow or coup or whatever. That was going to be kind of difficult with Libya because there really wasn't as much dissatisfaction with him as there were in other countries that could be exploited. So since they couldn't do that, there had to be a threat to some external group or people or something. So they come in, they say, all right, you're not going to sign the contract the way we want to make it up. Then guess what? We're just going to take over the whole thing and militarily come in. It's ours anyway. So, I mean, is it that simple or is there more to it?
Well, I think it's basically that simple. War is usually the last option, Ernie. It's a lot easier to pressure a leader who is doing things that Western powers don't like and, scare him, pressure him, get him to go along. The second choice would be a coup d'etat. If you can enlist the local military to go along with you, and how do you enlist them? You bribe them. All these Gaddafi officials that came over to the West. Well, the guy who was their military commander, not field commander, but the guy above their field commander, was a guy who lived in Langley, Virginia for 20 years. He's a CIA asset. So he was recruited by the CIA. The guy who is the so-called head of their National Transitional Council, NTC, a guy named Jalil, he was a top Gaddafi official. They bribed him to come over. They bribed others. So you're a general in Gaddafi's army, and they say, look, we're going to blow the country up. You want to stay there, we'll blow you up. Why don't you get out while the getting's good? And by the way, we'll sweeten the deal. We'll give you $5 billion in a Swiss bank, and you'll be able to live comfortably with your family. Will you take that deal? Well, some of them will. Some of them will. They're turncoats if the price is high enough. You could call them whores. Prostitutes, whores.
Well, who are the mini whores? This is what I saw when they would give footage of the actual guns firing. It's like and you know how they manufacture this stuff. That's why they're amping up all this hurricanes, even when they knew it was not going to be that big a deal. They're making it a big deal all the way up to the end until they couldn't because it's like better ratings. So they have a guy out there in a Toyota pickup. In the back, they got some anti-aircraft gun, and they're like, oh, cameras, you can see them. They're like, oh, everybody watching? Okay, here. They point it up in the air, and they go, as if they were shooting at something. And I'm going, what a joke. If they were shooting at anything, they were just wasting ammunition, and I'm just, it was all staged, and I'm going,
it's all staged.
So these people that they had to get their little footage, it kind of reminds me of when the troops took the tanks and pulled down the Saddam statue in front of the hotel out in the middle of the roundabout square kind of thing. And then later you get, either satellite photos or more distant photos, and you see it's just like 50, 60 guys that were, flew in from England, I think, by on C-130s or something to go and be there. Oh yeah, we're the guys, we're the opposition, and so on. It was just all manufactured. So I see this I've been through this enough to go, okay, here we go again. Who were they purporting those people to be? Who are the rebels? The rebels of what? You're either insurgent or rebel, depending on whose side the media says you're on. Well, these guys are rebels. Representing what? Who is against Gaddafi?
Well, you could use the term rebel. They're really insurgents or paramilitaries. But let me tell your listeners one thing they may not know. You remember the glorious reported as glorious scenes of mass crowds in Green Square in Tripoli celebrating the rebels coming in? You remember those scenes?
I remember them talking about them. Yeah, wasn't that from some other country?
It had a massive crowd. Well, that was all fake. Weeks, maybe months in advance, there was a soundstage, a studio created in Doha, Qatar, just like a Hollywood soundstage, and they produced fake video of a celebration. Well, you can get footage of celebrations anywhere and say they were in Green Square, Times Square, Rockefeller. You could say they're anywhere in the world. The fact that they say them means nothing. The BBC showed mass celebratory scenes with people not looking like Arabs waving Indian flags. It was something going on in India. I don't know what it was, but it had nothing to do with Libya. The BBC put that on air and claimed the people were rallying for NATO, for Gaddafi. The polls, the more NATO bombed, Ernie, the more they bombed, the higher Gaddafi's approval rating rose. And I saw one poll going back a few weeks that 85% of the people in the country supported him, and it's not surprising because 2 or 3 times in Tripoli, there were honest rallies of well over 1 million people who came out rallying in Green Square to listen to him talk. At the beginning, he was live. He was right there. They could see him.
Which was like 90% of the population in the area. So,
the country of Libya has 6 million odd people. The population of Tripoli, I've seen different numbers. Let's say 1.5 million. So they get over 1 million people in Green Square. My God, it would be like in Chicago, city of Chicago, it'd be like getting 2 million, 2.5 million people out in Chicago to rally for anything.
Oh, you see where there's something else going on, and we need to understand just another perspective, and Stephen Lendman's going to help us with that because we need it. And then what? What's going to happen? We'll talk about that when we come back.